Guys, how's it going? Ghostly Richard today with Mika, and today we are going to be upgrading our oil filter relocation kit with some stainless braided line. You're going to need these fittings, or you don't need these fittings, but you need to get some if you want to do this the dash 6 or and 6s, some will call it. As you can see right here, product number for the angled ones I'm using, the 1/2 inch NPT to dash 6. This is that adapter. And this is the straight one, which is going to come out of it. And this is again another dash 6. Oh yeah, that's right, I got 4 dash 6s because I needed the dash 6 to 1/2 NPT for both sides of the oil filter relocation kit, and I only needed 3 feet worth of hoses. Now, I got this from the local shop. I'm going to show you this stuff too. I got this off Amazon. This is rated for fuel. You'd want to make sure you get one that's rated for oil use. But as you can see, you can get nylon instead of the stainless if you want. I went stainless because it's a little bit stronger. Just hurts a little bit more to make. I will show you how to make this, but first thing we need to do is we need to know our lengths. So we're going to measure out our old hoses that I did for this. Now, I'm not going to show you how to reinstall this kit. I'll post a link in the description and it will show you how I originally installed this kit. I've decided though, like I said, to upgrade the lines because I really hate those twist lock lines. So let's go ahead and get started. If you were just going to be replacing your lines, what you can do is just unscrew your oil filter, whether it's up or down, whatever you want to do. And what you can do is let all the oil in these lines drain out into a bucket. For me, I'm going to be doing an oil change at the same time. So I'm going to be popping my oil plug and taking my filter off. Now, if you want to, rather than just go ahead and do that, if you want to test for leaks before you do a full oil change, I'm not too worried. I've made a few lines, so I know what to do now. But if this is your first time and you want to be able to test them, just do the oil filter. Don't drain your oil yet. And what you'll do is replace these lines, and then you can actually start the vehicle, let it refill the oil filter. You're going to be down a quart of oil, so don't go revving your motor or anything like that. But what you would do is start it up and then start searching for any leaks. And if you want, give it a tiny bit of gas, and just after that, go underneath and take a look. And as long as you don't see a leak, perfect. Pull your old oil filter off again, and then go ahead and drop your plug and then drain your oil. Just a quick heads up. Crack the oil filter loose, let that drain out, and then right now I've got the plug draining in the back in another bucket. Pretty easy, just for this particular vehicle, which is got the 5.7 in it, but it is a unique vehicle because I put a Hemi inside of a Jeep Wrangler. So we're letting that drain over there. This is draining over here. After this is finished dripping out and doing its thing, we're gonna have a choice. We can either pull the whole assembly out, so take this bolt out and remove the relocation kit, create the lines and fabricate them and screw it back in, or we put the new lines in its place. And I think I'm just gonna go for putting the lines in its place. And the reason why is then we don't have to try to break the seal on a not leaking system already on the bottom of the oil filter relocation system, and then also just replace these lines. So the whole reason why I'm replacing these twist lock lines is I always meant to. It was just a matter of time. I wanted to see how the system would work and how I liked this location, which I ended up really liking. And now that I know that this is the right location, I can go ahead and make the lines, since the and lines, they're not 100% expensive, but you only want to do it once. Well, with the new hose, I'm actually going to have half the length of hose, and I actually only needed one thing. I ended up buying 2 things of 3 foot, so that way I had lots of play. I didn't need that. I could have actually done much shorter, but either way, you live and you learn. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to try making my first line here. Now, one thing, like I said, you could do is you could actually cut this hose, and if you're already happy with your routing, just cut one of the hoses and then unscrew it. It's gonna be really hard to try and unscrew this without this kind because there's no swivel on it. So as you try to, it's gonna twist the hose. So the only proper way to get it out is to pretty much cut it. You can try and take it off that bar, but good luck. That twist lock stuff works really good. So I'm gonna measure out my first line, and before I screw the new one in, I'm actually gonna show you the way I routed it. So that way, if you're doing this on a cheap Hemi project, then you know, and little obstacles to look for when you're doing this. All right, let's show you. Let's say your length was this big. So you'd come over here, come like this, throw some electrical tape around it. Just like that. Then, what you would end up doing, taking something very, very sharp and made for metal. Stick it in and squish down. I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna actually probably use this piece on another project, but that's what you would do. The other way you can do it, which some people do, is a grinder, or you can also use it, believe it or not, if you hold it with a vise, an oscillating tool. Make sure that the blade is lined up right here and cut it. I wouldn't suggest using a reciprocating saw, but if you do, make sure it's a really darn good blade. And make sure you cut down the center of the tape. After you're done, go ahead, peel that tape off. When you peel that tape off, you'll be done with an end like this. Now, if you notice that right in here, this isn't rounded, you can go ahead, round this out. Check and make sure that this is pretty oval. Now, if you have a little bit of a edge going on, depending if you have some, I got some, but I'll grab them afterwards. You can take some metal side cutters and go ahead, or even your metal snips here, and just trim off the excess stainless. So that way it's pretty flush. Then we can also check our cut. Make sure your cut is flush so we get the best seal. Go ahead, take your fitting out of the package, unscrew it so it's like this. Depending on the fitting style you're using, it'll look like this. This is why I love the stainless lines. I find them to be so much easier. Depending if you get like the other nylon style lines, they'll have this acorn situation you have to work with. If you look, I make another video called how to make fuel lines. If you go watch that, I use the acorn style. It was a bugger. Go ahead and use it if you'd like. Anyways, so after you've got this and it's all nice and you know it's flush, you can put your finger on it, you can put it against the cement, just make sure it's flush. Again, just do this to crimp all those little strands in. That way it makes it a little bit easier if you want. And then if any look extremely tight, go ahead and, or long as I should say, make sure you trim them and save yourself the heartache of pulling that fitting apart. So do that so that way it's kept its shape. Pull this out and you can start working this in again. I hate doing this part on camera because I'm never in focus. Let's see if I can get it. There we go, twisty. Oh, there we go. Make sure, no ends. Holy smokes. Just do that, get our socket going. Man, I almost have it right up against with my hand. That one was smooth. And there we go. Holy smokes. Look at that. Let's see if I can shine that light in there once more. Show you how good that one is. Let's see. There we go. Maybe side shot. There you go. Okay. So, again from there, I'm gonna line this up. Now some people put the fitting itself into the vise, this one, if you want to do that. I don't bother, I mean you can. I don't know, maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment and I like to hold the other side. But I think it's just more sturdy. I'm always worried about the vise letting go. So now that we've got that, and again it's holding it, we're gonna shoot a little bit of silicone spray on. First, shove our handy dandy in there. Perfect, and slide it out. Put this right here. Just like that. Just to make sure. Doesn't really matter. It's all oil based. And we'll start to screw it in. Buttery smooth, as you can see. Alrighty. And again, this one can just go right here. This one can go right here. And just start to tighten it in. And go flush. Hardest part is when you start to get near the end, because you don't want both wrenches to click together. Or well, you don't want one wrench to go onto the other one's nut as you tighten, because then you'll just be pressing against nothing and you'll just end up making the fitting look disgusting. And we're almost flush. And that's basically flush. So I'm actually end up seeing, okay, let's see. You know what? I like that. Might have to back turn a little bit so it's straight and in line, but look how flush that is. And we know it's nice and tight, so we're not too worried. Clean it up and take a look and admire your beautiful job. If you see any stray strands, you could redo it, but I'm happy with that. Admire both sides. Yep. Not gonna lie with you guys, I went one more around because I seen there's a tiny bit of gap in there and I didn't like it. But if you're wondering how close it should be just like that. Just like that, 2 lines were created. Wow. Let's go ahead and start the replacement process. You can see my oil filter relocation plate up and over there. And what I'm gonna do now is, as you can see, it was up through here and then went here. I'm going to cut the line here and cut the line there, and just make sure you remember which is your in and out. Otherwise, you're gonna have to disconnect and reconnect these lines if you have it backwards. How you'll know is you'll get an oil pressure light on the dash. So make sure you memorize which line went where before replacing them. I only pulled this out because I wanted to show you guys what is going on, and I just couldn't in there. Not properly anyway. So as you can see, I'm cleaning up these threads. Make sure those threads are nice and polished up. Next thing we're gonna do, a little bit of thread sealant. And just go ahead, and you don't even have to do it on the front. I like to do it on the back end, because if you do that, it can start and you don't have to worry about this plugging those lines if you do this. And what's gonna happen is having this on there is just an extra added bonus of making sure you're gonna seal up. So now that we've done that, go ahead and just start finger tightening it on. And once you can feel it's nice and smooth, 7/8. Go ahead, tighten it in. Remember, aluminum fitting. They're both actually aluminum, but you'll want it and they're good. And as you can see, that's why I'm using the thread sealant. Oh, right about there. Don't go He-Man with this. Make sure we keep it off the and side, so that way we know we can add it if we need to. Again, doesn't look the prettiest, but I know it's gonna seal. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to. If you want to, I wouldn't personally. I'm not gonna use thread sealant on this side. The reason why is because this flare has to seal up inside the hose, otherwise it will leak. So I'll leave it up to you. I'm not going to put anything on this, but if you'd like to, go ahead and use a little bit of thread sealant. Just on the threads, nowhere near here. This is right where it's gonna seal inside your coupling, and if it's on here, you might not get a good seal. So if you're gonna do anything, just a minor bit, I'd almost use a Q-tip and put it just on the very back threads back here, so there's no chance of it sealing right here. As you can see, I've got one line tied here, comes around, over, and right here to our filter. Other one follows the same path, just goes to the other side of the tranny lines. That way, in this case, it keeps my tranny lines where they need to be. For you, you might not need to, but again, that's some of the obstacles we're looking for. Next big one. If you got an axle like me, see that big piece in the back? Let's see if I can show you from this angle. Right there, right behind the tranny lines. Well, that fluctuates with the axle. It goes up and down. So it's very important to look for stuff like that and make sure that you do a flex test. In this case, what I'll do is right on that joint right there, I'll put a jack and I will pump that wheel all the way up till it's pretty much lifting the other wheel off the ground. Or actually, I probably will lift the other wheel off the ground. So this one's off the ground and then this one's starting to lift because that's maximum travel. And that way, you know, you're not accidentally going to hit one of your lines and break it off or bend it, because that would just completely defeat the purpose. So I highly suggest you do an articulation test, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I've already seen that it should dodge the lines even at full articulation, but it's always good to double check. Well, do you think that's good enough, Mika? Is that enough articulation? I just threw a little bit in there. I double checked, and I still have a lot of room and clearance, and I made sure that it would dodge it. And even if it made it up that high, which I'd probably hit my frame before I hit those new right angles I put in. As you can see in there, lots and lots of clearance still, even from those tranny lines. So that's what we're looking for. Now that we know that it's good. So now that I've double checked, and again, I took my sway bar one side off just to make sure everything like that for clearance. But either way, looks great. Doesn't look like we're gonna have any problems. It's time to lower it. I'll put that sway bar piece back on. And what we're gonna end up doing is putting the oil filter on and filling it back up with 7 quarts of oil, if it's a Hemi. So we got the motor idling. We jump underneath. We check our lines. No oil there. Yeah, those look good. We look at our far lines. And no oil there. So far, so good. Next thing to do, now that we've checked all our lines, we know that there's nothing dripping, anything like that. We'll double check our oil level, make sure it's all good. And then if you want, go for a drive around the block and make sure nothing happens there. Might be hard to see on the camera, but I'm officially full. Now, cool thing for you guys with Mylodon dipsticks that I've got like this, where you have to check your oil through your fender well. If you have the Jeep Hemi project and you put new headers on it, you can actually use the factory dipstick in that hole. And if you go to that first nubbin right there, that is the full length of the dipstick. So you have to make that nubbin line up with the very end piece right there. Anyways, random fun fact. Thanks again for watching. If you don't got leaks, you're done. Hope this video helped you out. Thanks again and subscribe.